They said he would be the final piece, the prodigal son, the man who grew up cheering for the Leafs and who, upon returning home, would restore the faith of an entire city. John Tavares didn't arrive in Toronto just with numbers or a millionaire contract. He came with a mission, and for years, that mission became indistinguishable from the very destiny of the franchise. But time passes. The NHL doesn't forgive. And now, with the end of his contract approaching, a question begins to echo not only in the back halls of Scotiabank Arena, but also in the hearts of the fans. How much longer does John Tavares remain part of the Maple Leafs' future? The provocation emerged in a low voice, in an almost discreet movement. Matt Duchene, another respected veteran, signed a 4-year extension with the Dallas Stars, a deal worth $4.5 million per season. And suddenly, the comparison became inevitable. After all, Duchene and Tavares are from the same generation, reached their peaks a few seasons ago, and now hold strategic roles on their teams. Could this be Tavares' path as well? According to insider Pierre LeBrun, the answer is no, and he is clear in saying the situations are not comparable. And this is where the story takes on emotional weight. Matt Duchene today is a complementary piece on a well-structured team that no longer demands the protagonism of his past. John Tavares, on the other hand, is and always has been the gravitational center of the Maple Leafs. Captain, reference point, mentor, a quiet but constant leader. And when he steps onto the ice, he carries something far heavier than the puck, the weight of decades of frustration, ones he never caused but promised to help erase. Since signing with Toronto in 2018, Tavares has been a symbol of hope, not only for his talent, but because he chose to come back. Because even with offers from other franchises, he bet on the Leafs. He bet on Toronto. He bet on a dream he's carried since he was a kid, when he slept on team sheets and imagined scoring the championship-winning goal. But reality was harsh. The Leafs kept falling short in the playoffs. Cruel defeats, early eliminations, adjustments that never fully worked. And through it all, Tavares remained steadfast. With 29 goals and 65 points last season, he still shows he has something to offer. But at 34 years old, he's no longer the explosive player he once was. And his current AAV, $11 million, has become a point of debate. Not because he wasn't worth the contract, but because the NHL salary cap is unforgiving. Every cent matters. And every renewal must be approached with surgical coldness. This is where the real dilemma begins for the Leafs executives. Renewing with Tavares means keeping the team's identity alive. It means preserving the balance of a locker room still searching for maturity and leadership. But it could also mean giving up reinforcements in critical positions. Defense and goaltending remain sensitive issues. And with Austin Matthews, Marner, and Nylander consuming a large portion of the cap space, keeping Tavares without renegotiating could be very costly. On the other hand, forcing a renegotiation to drastically reduce his value would be a risky move. Not just technically, but emotionally. Tavares is more than an asset. He is the bridge between the team and the fans, between the ice and memory. And the question no one wants to say out loud, but everyone feels, is, would John Tavares accept this new role? A shorter contract, a smaller salary, a role more symbolic than central. Is he ready for that transition? Or would he prefer to seek a new challenge elsewhere? Even if it means ending his time in Toronto without fulfilling the dream that brought him back, there are no easy answers. Not for him, not for the franchise. And the most curious thing is that Even though Matt Duchene has no direct link to the Leafs, his extension ends up serving as a mirror, as a market thermometer, and as a point of tension. Because unlike Duchene, Tavares can't just accept a pay cut and go on as if nothing has changed. Everything changes when you're the captain. Everything changes when you carry on your shoulders a history of one of the most loyal and most heartbroken fan bases in the NHL. This negotiation, still behind the scenes, has the power to change the direction of the franchise. If the Leafs manage to keep Tavares under conditions that allow the team to grow stronger, they will have a solid emotional foundation to try again. But if this relationship falls apart, the void he leaves behind will be hard to fill. So tell us, Leafs fan, do you believe Tavares should accept less to keep wearing the blue and white? Or is it time to turn the page and make room for a new cycle? Comment down below. Let's build this debate together with respect and passion, because every opinion matters, especially in a moment like this. They said he was a final piece, the symbol of a new era. When John Tavares decided to come home with a blue and white and carry the C on his chest, it wasn't just a market move. It was a gesture of faith, of reconnection with the roots. The Toronto boy returning to lead the revolution. But now, years later, the story that began as a promise is quietly moving toward an end, and perhaps toward something even greater. As Tavares' contract approaches a critical point, the city is divided. On one side, loyalty to a captain who never shied away from responsibility. On the other, the urgency to change. Because if there is one undeniable truth in this league, it's that time doesn't wait. And in Toronto, it's almost up. Matt Duchene's extension with the Dallas Stars was the trigger. A veteran who accepted a 4-year deal worth $4.5 million per year. A contract that, for many, would serve as a model for others from the same generation. But Pierre LeBrun, one of the NHL's most respected insiders, was straightforward. Tavares' situation is not comparable to Duchene's, because while Duchene is a complementary piece in a functional system, Tavares remains a pillar of leadership and identity in Toronto. But even pillars have an expiration date, with a current AAV of $11 million. Keeping Tavares without renegotiation would mean sacrificing the team's financial flexibility, exactly when more depth, solid defense, and consistency in goal are needed most. On the other hand, offering a new contract at a reduced value would be an emotionally risky choice. Tavares still produces, still scores, still leads, but accepting less in a reduced role might wound the pride of a player who has given everything for this city. And it is in this deadlock that the narrative gains a new dimension. Because while Toronto wonders how to move forward with its captain, in Edmonton, a familiar pain begins to bleed again. The Oilers have just seen their dream collapse once more. Defeated 5-1 in Game 6 of the 2025 Stanley Cup Final, they watched the Panthers lift the trophy for the second consecutive year. A scene that has become a recurring nightmare. A curse that extends the suffering of an entire nation. Canada has now gone 32 years without winning a Stanley Cup. 7 lost finals since 1993. No victories. And this time, the captain Connor McDavid, the greatest individual talent of his generation, was once again left on the ice, not for lack of effort, but for lack of response. McDavid, with his usual calm, congratulated the Panthers. They deserve it. They're an incredible team. But behind the words was a weight hard to ignore. The weight of frustration, of repetition, of carrying a franchise without reaching the top. The reaction was immediate. Josh Yohe, an experienced NHL journalist, didn't hold back criticism. McDavid is an incredible player, but he's never won. He's not Gretzky. He's not Lemieux. He can't be compared yet. And the question no one wanted to ask was finally asked. What if McDavid wants to leave? With only 1 year left on his contract, the moment of choice is approaching, and a new rumor is spreading fast. Toronto will be ready to enter the bidding if McDavid becomes available. Adam Gretz from Bleacher Report was blunt. If McDavid hits the market, the Leafs have to get involved. And it's not just about talent. It's about connection. McDavid was born in the greater Toronto area. He grew up breathing the same ice that Tavares now defends on. The idea of coming home, as Tavares once did, no longer seems so far away. Just imagine Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid on the same team. Two offensive forces of historic caliber. An attack powerful enough to change the fate of an entire conference, perhaps the entire league. But for that to happen, something would have to give, and the name that inevitably begins to surface is John Tavares. Not because he failed, but because to make way for a new cycle, sometimes you have to say goodbye to the previous one, with honor, with respect, but also with courage. And if McDavid really decides to leave Edmonton, it will be because he understood that talent alone is not enough. Structure is needed. Direction is needed. An organization ready to win now is needed. And Toronto, with its young roster, established core, and a city hungry for a title, might be the perfect stage for his redemption. Of course, it's all still rumor. The Oilers will do everything to keep their captain, and McDavid won't take this decision lightly. But the scenario is set. The narrative is ready, and the clock once again is ticking. John Tavares' story with the Leafs may be coming to an end, but perhaps that doesn't mean a full stop. Maybe it's just the space needed for the beginning of a new era. An era led by a player who grew up on Canadian soil and who may finally bring home what the entire country has been waiting for more than 3 decades. Connor McDavid. And now I ask you, would you let Tavares go to make room for McDavid? Or do you believe the soul of the Leafs lies in keeping what we already have, even if it costs us another lost chance? Comment down below. Let's talk as a true community of fans. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell, because in the coming days, this rumor will only grow. And if it grows, it will change everything. Because for decades, Toronto has dreamed of a savior. Maybe he has worn this uniform before, but maybe this time he comes from the north and brings with him the cup that has never arrived.